At my 30th birthday party, I wasn't even allowed to blow out my own candles. Instead, I received the most twisted gift from my parents. A demand to sell my apartment, the one I'd spent my entire 20s saving for, to bail out my golden child brother from his latest financial disaster. The restaurant noise faded around me as I stared at the melting wax dripping onto the chocolate frosting. My mother's voice cut through my shock. "Sarah, we need to discuss this now. Jason needs your help." I'd spent my whole life being invisible in my own family. Always the responsible one. Always the afterthought. But in that moment, watching my birthday candles burn down without making a wish, something inside me finally ignited. I deserved to be seen. I had been repeating this to myself like a mantra for years without truly believing it. But tonight, as my 30th year began with yet another demand for sacrifice, those words finally took root. My name is Sarah Collins, 30 as of today. For 8 years, I've worked 60-hour weeks at a marketing firm in Chicago, saving every possible dollar until I finally purchased my 2-bedroom apartment in Lincoln Park last year. It's not extravagant, but it's mine, the only thing I've ever owned that truly belongs to me alone. My brother Jason, 25, has been my parents' pride and joy since the day he was born. The Collins family golden boy who can do no wrong. Since he was 18, Jason has launched a new revolutionary business venture, approximately every 6 months. My parents call this his entrepreneurial spirit and creative genius. I call it what it is: a pattern of impulsive decisions followed by financial disasters that someone else always has to clean up. I learned early that I was expected to fade into the background of my own life. In family photos, I'm always positioned slightly behind Jason. During holiday dinners, my achievements at work are mentioned in passing, if at all, while Jason's latest half-formed business idea dominates the conversation for hours. "Your brother needs more support," my dad would say. "He's special. He thinks differently." Meanwhile, I put myself through college with scholarships and part-time jobs. I worked through holidays and weekends to climb the corporate ladder. I budgeted every penny to afford my apartment. None of that was considered special, it was simply expected. My existence has been reduced to being Jason's safety net and my parents' backup plan. I've become so accustomed to being invisible that I've started to believe maybe that's all I deserve. I deserve to be seen. I've whispered this to myself countless times, never quite believing it. Until tonight. My birthday party was at Carlino's, a small Italian restaurant downtown. My best friend Olivia had reserved a private room and decorated it with streamers and photos from our college days. I felt a flicker of happiness when I arrived. Maybe tonight would be different. My parents showed up precisely on time, their punctuality a stark contrast to the warmth the occasion called for. Before I could even take their coats, my father launched into his favorite topic. "Did we tell you about Jason's new tech startup? He's developing an app that's going to revolutionize how people order groceries," my dad announced, his eyes lighting up with the familiar pride reserved only for my brother. I forced a smile. "I actually just got promoted to marketing director last week." My mother nodded without meeting my eyes. "That's nice, dear. But your brother said he'd be running a bit late. Something about an investor meeting." I deserved to be seen. My fingers tightened around my water glass. Throughout the appetizers, my parents dominated the conversation with stories about Jason's business genius. My college friends exchanged uncomfortable glances as my parents discussed how Jason just needed one big break to become the next tech billionaire. Jason arrived an hour late with no gift, no apology. He slid into the seat beside me, immediately leaning over to whisper, "Hey sis, can I borrow $200? I forgot my wallet." When the birthday cake was finally brought out, a chocolate ganache cake that Olivia had special ordered from my favorite bakery, my father held up his hand to stop the server. "Before we celebrate, we need to discuss something serious," he said, his tone instantly transforming the festive atmosphere. The candles flickered, sending shadows dancing across the walls as everyone fell silent. The wax dripped slowly down, counting the seconds of my fading birthday celebration. Jason has a financial situation that needs immediate attention, my mother said, her fingers nervously twisting her napkin. We thought we should discuss it as a family. I stared at the melting candles. Not even allowed to make a wish before my birthday was hijacked. No one sees me. Not even on my birthday. Jason owes $500,000, my mother said, her voice trembling. If he doesn't pay it back this month, they'll take legal action. I looked at my brother. Jason stared down at the table, playing the perfect victim. We've been thinking, my father continued, placing his hand over my mother's. You could sell your apartment. The real estate market is hot right now, you'd make a profit. After helping Jason, you'd still have enough for a down payment on another place. The birthday candles continued to burn. Half melted now. I watched the small flames, each one representing a year of my life. A year where I'd diminished myself to make room for everyone else's needs. I've helped him 3 times already, I said, my voice unfamiliar to my own ears, steady, firm. Each time was supposed to be the last time. My apartment is everything I have. Everything I worked 80-hour weeks to afford. Don't you care about your brother? My mother's voice rose. He's your flesh and blood. I'll pay you back, I promise, Jason said, his eyes welling with perfectly timed tears. I got scammed by my business partner. But my new app is guaranteed to bring in at least $800,000 in the next month. Olivia reached under the table and squeezed my hand, the only gesture of support in a room suddenly feeling very cold. No, I said, the single syllable dropping into the silence like a stone. What did you say? My father's tone shifted, the familiar note of disapproval that had shaped my childhood. I said no. I stood up, legs shaking but voice stronger. I will not sell my apartment. I will not bail Jason out again. Sarah, my mother gasped. How can you be so selfish? Your brother would do the same for you. A bitter laugh escaped me. Would he? When has Jason ever sacrificed anything for me? That's not fair, Jason protested. I'm in real trouble here. You're always in trouble, I replied. And I'm always expected to fix it. Not anymore. I grabbed my purse and stepped away from the table. The uneaten cake and burning candles, a perfect metaphor for my life, something that should have been mine, consumed by others before I ever got a taste. I deserved to be seen. For the first time, I truly believed it. As I stood in the restaurant bathroom, splashing cold water on my face, memories washed over me with each icy drop. When I was 18, primed to start college with a partial scholarship to Northwestern University, my parents sold my college fund money my grandparents had left specifically for my education to pay for Jason's private high school. You already have a scholarship, my mother had explained. Jason needs more support. At 22, I'd been offered a fully funded study abroad program in London, a dream opportunity in marketing. The family needs you here, my father had insisted. Jason's struggling in school. He needs his big sister. 2 months later, my parents sent Jason on a European vacation to broaden his horizons. The down payment for my apartment came from 7 years of side gigs, freelance marketing projects I completed after my regular workday ended, tutoring on weekends, skipping vacations, and new clothes and dinners out. Not a penny came from my parents. Not a word of praise when I finally signed the papers. It was just expected Sarah being responsible as usual. I stared at my reflection, noticing for the first time the permanent crease between my eyebrows, the tightness around my mouth, physical manifestations of years spent compressing myself into smaller and smaller spaces to make room for Jason's outsized presence. You're such a good daughter, people would tell me, meaning, you're so agreeable, so willing to put yourself last, so obedient. No one sees me. They see only what I give, not who I am. A text message lit up my phone. Olivia. Are you okay? Do you want me to come in? Olivia. The one person who had always seen me clearly. The one who had decorated the restaurant tonight. Who remembered my favorite cake, who squeezed my hand under the table when everyone else was demanding I sacrifice my security for Jason's irresponsibility. I texted back, "I'll be right out." Olivia was waiting in the hallway. She pulled me away from the dining room, toward the small courtyard at the back of the restaurant. "Your family is still sitting there, expecting you to come back and apologize," she said, her voice tight with anger. "Your brother is crying to your mom about how he might lose his car if he can't make the payments." The night air was cool against my hot face. Chicago's skyline glittered beyond the courtyard walls, indifferent to my small life crisis. "You've sacrificed too much for them already," Olivia continued, her hands on my shoulders, forcing me to look directly at her. "They don't ask Jason to change because they know you'll always be there to pick up the pieces. Listen to me, Sarah. You are not the villain for protecting yourself." I stared at the cityscape, those glowing buildings where people made decisions about their own lives without constant guilt and obligation weighing them down. "I've spent my entire life trying to be the perfect daughter and sister," I whispered. "But I've never actually lived for myself." "Then maybe it's time to start," Olivia said. Something shifted inside me, a perspective tilting, like a kaleidoscope suddenly turned to reveal an entirely different pattern from the same pieces. "It's not just about the money, is it?" I said slowly. "It's about never being seen, never being valued for who I am, only for what I can provide." Olivia squeezed my shoulders. "Exactly." I took a deep breath of the night air, feeling something new unfurling in my chest. Not just anger or hurt, but determination. "I deserve to be seen," I said aloud. For the first time, the words weren't just a desperate affirmation. They were a declaration. When I returned to gather my coat, I passed by the restrooms and caught Jason's voice from around the corner. He was on his phone, speaking in hushed tones. "Just $200K, man. The other $300 is for the down payment on the Porsche." I froze, my blood going cold. Mom and Dad already signed the papers to sell the lake house. Yeah, Sarah's name is on it too as co-owner, but she doesn't know yet. Once we get her to sell her apartment, I'll have enough to cover everything and then some. The lake house. My grandparents' cherished summer home where I'd spent every childhood summer. The property that my grandmother had explicitly stated in her will should belong equally to Jason and me. My fingers tightened around my phone. Without thinking, I hit record. "She won't find out about the lake house," Jason continued, laughing. "Sarah's too busy being the perfect daughter to check what's happening with the property. By the time she figures it out, it'll be done." I backed away silently, my mind racing. The $500,000 debt was a lie. The desperate situation was manufactured. And my parents were not just enabling Jason, they were actively helping him deceive me and take my inheritance. I deserve respect. The thought burned through me like fire. I slipped out of the restaurant without saying goodbye. Jason's recorded conversation safely stored on my phone. Instead of going home, I went to a hotel. I needed neutral ground to think clearly, away from the apartment that they wanted me to sacrifice. By morning, my shock had crystallized into resolve. This wasn't just about tonight's demand. This was about a lifetime of being used. A lifetime of being rendered invisible within my own family. I deserved better. And for once, I was going to fight for exactly what I deserved. The next day, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. Instead of going to the office, I met with Patricia Chan, a college friend who now worked as an attorney. "According to the documents, you own 25% of that lake house property," Patricia confirmed after reviewing the paperwork. "They legally cannot sell it without your signature." I withdrew my name from the joint bank accounts I shared with my family accounts I'd kept open since college, just in case Jason needs emergency funds. As my mother had put it, I gathered every receipt, every text message, every email about the money I'd lent Jason over the years. $120,000 for his first coffee shop venture, $80,000 for his app startup, $150,000 for his real estate project. The total, $350,000. Not a penny had ever been repaid. I quietly researched Jason's latest business venture, not the revolutionary app he described to my parents, but a sketchy multi-level marketing scheme selling overpriced nutritional supplements. I changed the locks on my apartment door, changed my phone number, giving the new one only to Olivia and my closest friends. Set up email filters to redirect my parents' messages to a separate folder I could look at when I felt emotionally prepared. For 2 weeks I went silent. My parents called my office, left voicemails with my old number, even showed up at my apartment once thankfully when I wasn't home. I needed time to gather my strength, to build my resolve without their voices in my head undermining me. I deserve autonomy. This new mantra replaced the old one, stronger and more specific. On the 15th day, I texted my parents. Sunday dinner. My apartment. 6 p.m. All 3 of you need to be there. Sunday evening, I arranged 3 chairs at my dining table, facing a 4th mine. On the table, I placed an expandable file folder. When the doorbell rang, I took a deep breath. I'd rehearsed this moment for days, visualizing myself staying calm and strong. My parents entered first, their faces a mixture of relief and indignation. Jason trailed behind, his expression carefully crafted to appear wounded and confused. "Where have you been?" my mother demanded. "We've been worried sick." "Sit down, please," I said, gesturing to the chairs I'd arranged. My voice was steady, my back straight. Once they were seated, I opened the file folder and began removing papers, placing them on the table one by one. "This is a receipt for $120,000, dated March 15th, 2 years ago," I said, my tone even. "And here's the text message where Jason promised to repay it within 6 months." I continued laying down documents. $80,000, $150,000. A total of $350,000. Not $1 has ever been repaid. Jason's face drained of color. My parents sat in stunned silence. "Jason owes me $350,000 from 3 previous loans," I said, looking directly at my brother. "I will not sell my apartment. And I will not sign any papers related to selling Grandma's lake house." "What? What are you talking about?" my father stammered. "I know about the plan to sell the lake house," I said. "I know my name is on that property as co-owner. I know Jason only owes $200,000, not $500,000. I know about the Porsche he plans to buy with the remaining $300,000. I played the recording from the restaurant. Jason's voice filled the apartment. "Sarah won't find out about the lake house." My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father's face hardened. "This is a family matter," he began, falling back on his authority. "We need to stick together. Either Jason repays what he owes me and solves his own problems, or I'll take legal action," I interrupted. "I have all the documentation I need." "You'd sue your own family?" my mother gasped. "You were willing to steal my inheritance," I replied. "You tell me which is worse." I deserve boundaries. The thought gave me strength as I watched their world, one where Sarah always gave and crumble around them. "I don't have any debt at all," Jason suddenly shouted, his face flushed with anger. It's just the down payment for the new condo. I want to buy a place in Gold Coast Towers." The room fell silent. Gold Coast Towers, the most exclusive high-rise in Chicago, where condos started at $1.2 million. "Jason," my mother's breath caught. "You told us you were about to be evicted if you didn't pay." "I will be evicted if I don't make the down payment in time," Jason stammered. "It's the last unit available in the building." My father slumped in his chair, his face ashen. "All these years, you've been lying to us." "Not lying," Jason said defensively. "Just enhancing the urgency of the situations." 3 months later, I signed the contract for my promotion to marketing director. That same day, I sent my parents a portfolio. plans to convert the lake house into a small assisted living facility, a place where they could live in their golden years, rather than letting Jason sell it for a quick profit. I'd partnered with a developer who specialized in elder care properties. The lake house would maintain its charm while accommodating my parents' future needs. Most importantly, the property would stay in the family, preserved as my grandparents had wished. "I'm not doing this for Jason," I told my father when I presented the portfolio. "I'm doing it for Grandma's memory, and for you and Mom when you need care later on." My father, looking older than I'd ever seen him, nodded slowly. "I don't know when we went so wrong with him. With both of you. We thought we were supporting his special talents, but we were just enabling him," I finished, "and making me invisible in the process." For the first time in my life, my father really looked at me, not through me, not past me to Jason, but at me. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I truly am. I am the author of my own life." The thought came to me, stronger than any that had come before. 1 year later, my apartment became the meeting place for a small group called Women Who See Themselves, a support community Olivia, and I had founded for women reclaiming their self-worth after years of diminishment. I spent my life being the dutiful daughter, the supportive sister, but forgot to be the autonomous woman. I told the group during our meeting, "Love doesn't equal blind sacrifice. Setting boundaries doesn't equal selfishness." Jason had finally started working a regular office job, not the entrepreneurial dream he'd chased for years, but steady employment with a tech company. He made small but consistent payments toward his debt to me each month. My relationship with my parents was slowly rebuilding, this time on a foundation of respect, not dependence. They'd begun to see Jason's behavior patterns more clearly, and had stopped rushing to rescue him from every self-created crisis. The lake house renovation had begun. My parents visited the site regularly, gradually taking ownership of the vision I'd created for their future. "You were right about everything," my mother admitted during one visit. "We should have protected you both equally. Instead, we taught Jason that he never had to face consequences, and we taught you that your needs didn't matter." "I know you thought you were doing what was best," I said, "but I needed you to see me. Really see me." She took my hand, her eyes filling with tears. "I see you now, Sarah. I'm sorry it took so long." I squeezed her hand. "Better late than never. I am worthy of being seen." This wasn't just a mantra anymore, it was the truth I lived every day. On my 31st birthday, I hosted a party in my apartment, the home I had fought to keep. This time, I blew out my candles and made a wish for myself, not for anyone else's approval. My parents and Jason arrived with modest gifts. Nothing extravagant, but genuine. "Sweetheart," my father said, his voice catching, "I'm sorry we didn't see you before." "I see myself now," I replied. "That's what matters most." As we shared cake, everyone getting a piece this time, I realized that the greatest gift wasn't the presents or even the apologies. It was the ability to stand firmly in my own worth without needing their validation to feel complete. I deserved to be seen. And finally, I could see myself clearly. The camera pans across my apartment, stopping at a small framed quote on the wall. "Family isn't where you sacrifice yourself. It's where everyone grows together." On my desk sits a portfolio for the Lake House Elder Care Project, bearing the signatures of my entire family. Beside it lies a plane ticket, my first ever solo vacation, not an escape, but an exploration of the world through the eyes of a woman who finally knows her own value. In the kitchen, my phone buzzes with a text from Olivia. "Don't forget the women who see themselves meeting tomorrow. Your story has already helped 3 new members stand up for themselves." I smile as I type my reply. "I'll bring the coffee." And my uncompromising self-worth. I am no longer a shadow. I am the navigator of my own life.